The title of, as you can see, the title of my talk is Generative AI Powered Customer Experience. And a bit about me before we just get started. So I'm currently working as Assistant General Manager at Paytm. And previously, before that, I was working for Google for around 4 years, around 3 years, right, where I was working with Google India as well as I was working with Google Sunnyvale office. I was leading their conversational AI program as a program manager, and that's where my stint with, I think, customer experience powered by AI started around, I think, 2020, which was like kind of a bit early era in the AI powered customer experience. But I think as I worked till this year, earlier this year at Google, I kind of we worked on different, I think, phases in this conversational AI powered by, I think, generative AI as a as an additional kind of thing into customer experience. So I just wanted to talk about, I think, how industry is progressing in customer experience, right? And when I say customer experience, I know that it means a lot, but I think what I'm referring to, I think that is a quick slide I wanted to present. I think it can mean a lot of things, which include like maybe customer experience or like maybe customer impact. You are working on different areas within the huge big umbrella of customer experience. But in this presentation, my scope is going to be how we interact with our customers, how different businesses, different enterprises, organizations interact with their customers, what are the different ways and how it is progressing with time, with AI era coming in, right? So I think that's something I'll quickly talk about over next 15 to 20 minutes, and then I'm happy to take questions on it. So if we talk about, I think, customer experience, right? I think be it for sales conversations or support conversations businesses have with their customers, what do we imagine, right? I think I just wanted to ask out the room here, and that's something I think that's the image which comes to our mind, right, when we think about like maybe customer service or customer experience, or if we think about calling any customer service number of any product or service we have bought, right? I think this is kind of the image we used to think, or even we think nowadays, right? So I think all of us can imagine that. So I think that's generally how customer experience used to be in the pre-AI era, and I'll walk you through how we can revolutionize and kind of completely evolve this experience with applications like ChatGPT and other generative platforms coming in, right? So yep, I think that's what I was referring to. So if you remember, I think, and this is the case even now, right, that when you call a toll-free number for a business or for a customer care number, even for buying a service or maybe reaching out to them for a support for the service or product you bought, I think you have to go through a long list of, I think, IVR menus, which we call as interactive voice response menus. These are traditional IVRs where you have to wait for like a long list, listen for your option, and probably I think a lot of times what a lot of customers are doing is they are waiting for kind of, they are either waiting for an option where they can actually press a button to directly talk to a agent like a customer care or a contact center agent for their query, right? I think that's generally how right now our customer care interaction happens. A lot of times we just press zero directly, so that thinking that we might be connected to a customer care agent directly, right? So I think that's generally how a customer experience used to look like. And I think the fact is that it is even true for a lot of organizations and businesses even now, right? Now I think what's the problem with that state, right? I think where there is, you are not automating, you are not using AI. I think what is the problem which comes with that? And I think the next slide represents very quickly about that, where you can see that there are overly complex menus. You don't know what to choose. Let's say I call up any of the service provider, I don't know what, like my issue is relatable to which particular menu option the IVR has given me, which leads to a super long waiting time also, because there are limited set of contact center agents which are manually resolving your complaints or giving you support or service for your conversation. And that's where I think you have to do that. You have, and which leads to high abandonment rates, right? I think people cut the calls. You are not able to service or give a good quality experience to your customers. There are high transfer rates because you pass the call from one queue to another, from a generalist queue to a specialist queue, and all those things, right? A lot of other things happen, which is kind of, your agents are sometimes unprepared and untrained, so you don't have a very good experience talking to them. Your resolution rate, I think, so yeah, I think this is probably lower resolution rate, not higher. So your resolution, your issue resolution rate is much lower, which eventually leads to overall a super bad customer experience, right? I think that's generally how we imagine or how we envision customer experience earlier or even nowadays for a lot of organizations. Now, I think what started happening from around 2020s, maybe around like 2017 or 2018, was that there was a early AI era, and a lot of organization pivoted to customer experience, pivoted their customer experience in this early AI era. Now, what that means is I'm going to talk about in the next slide. Yeah, I think this is again customer experience in early AI era and not really post. But I think what refers to is like we started building chatbots, we started building voice bots, assistants, or maybe even ad bots, which can help us automate a lot of these conversations. So, right, I'm sure that you would have seen a lot of lead generation bots on websites, right? So let's say you open any website, which is like a typical B2C consumer product or consumer service website, you usually see a small tick icon at the bottom right on the screen, where there is, it say that why are you here, can you give me your number, or can you give me your name, and we can help you out. So that's where the bots collect a lead and they help you with, and they basically connect you to a human agent who can help you sell the product or provide support or sales conversation support on the website, right? So these are chatbots. Now I'm sure a lot of you would have seen very recently, I think in last 3-4 years, a lot of voice bots have been put in place for customer experience, where you call a toll free number and you don't hear a very traditional IVR menu, right? What you hear is, what you listen to is basically, you listen to like a conversational bot, which basically asks you in a very human centric language on why are you calling. And let's say you tell that, oh, I am calling for checking into my flight, if it's a, say, if it's a flight booking toll free number, or if it's a banking kind of toll free number, you say that, oh, I'm calling to check the balance in my account, or check, or maybe unblock or block my debit card. I think there is a very conversational bot which sort of asks you to tell your last four digits of credit card, debit number, or your booking ID, or I think whatever details they need, and you speak it out. You don't really have to now type in into the keypad, and you can basically talk to that conversational voice bot to basically solve your query, right? I think this is slightly early AI era of bots, which I think we have seen in last 3-4 years, and I think some of the slides represent that. I think a lot of right now we have seen a lot of bots which are embedded into the ads. I think one of the bottom right image which you can see here, I think it's an ad by Kia cars, where I think within the ad there is an option of get started, and when you click on that, you can type and you can provide your details, and you will quickly receive a call within next 1-2 hours from the nearest Kia service, Kia sales office, if you're interested to buy a car, right? I think so these are ad bots which started coming in to better facilitate the sales journey of a customer, right? I think that's generally how early AI era used to look like. Now, and this is what we call as conversational AI, right? So you can say that I think conversational AI technology has been there from last few years, like probably like last 5 to 7 years, where I think we are building these bots, which are chatbots, voice bots, assistants, or ad bots, where you can interact. I'll give you one more example of a voice assistant, which is conversational nature. So you, all of you have used either Google assistant or Alexa or Siri. So I'm sure, like if you, some of you would have used Alexa to book a Ola or Uber car ride using that, right? So I think a lot of you can do that, and that skill was launched probably back in 20, like back in 2018 or 2019, where you can book a Uber ride on Alexa itself, right, from your current location, if your home location is set on Alexa, right? So I think this is a kind of customer experience we started looking at around in 2020. I will quickly envision you through now with generative AI coming in, how this experience is going to look like, right? And that's going to be very, very exciting future, right? For customers and enterprises going forward. Uh, yeah, so I think that's something I already talked about, but I think this is just a slide on what is conversational AI, which basically represents like a bot using NLP and NLU technologies to respond to a customer. Right now, how does that happen, right? uh, and that's where I think I have a slide on that. I think a slightly technical slide which lays down a details of how conversational AI platforms work, which are there from quite some years now. I think they largely work on ML based NLU and NLP technologies, where I think you train your models. There again, there are like models which you train for either, I think, capturing the intent or capturing certain entities like phone numbers, email IDs from the user. But I think these models are trained on very small scale data, unlike the LLMs, which are basically large language models. Conversational AI platforms usually use small scale data, for example, transcripts or your user utterances or your FAQs, which is very, very specific to that business. So now you can train, let's say, a bot based on your previous 1 year or let's say 1 month of transcript, and then you can quickly launch a new bot, right? So I think that's how traditionally conversational AI platforms work. Another difference was that I think a lot of these platforms, you have to write, or kind of you have to key feed in manually the set of responses which a bot is going to say out, right? So let's say there are 7 different possible outcomes of a question, right? That let's say your car is booked, your car is not booked, we are unable to find a driver, or there is a search. So I think we key feed in, we manually write. So there is a person, a conversational designer, who writes these dialogues and feeds it into the model. So model decides which ones to use, but I think the dialogues are kind of written manually, right? But now this space is going to be entirely changed with generative platforms coming in, because you can generate content now, you don't have to write in, right? And that's where the future is going to change, right, drastically. So I think this is generally how it used to look like in the pre-era. Now I think very quickly I just wanted to talk about how does customer experience is going to look like in the post AI era, right? I think where I think now, and when I say post AI era, I particularly refer to the launch of these generative AI platforms like ChatGPT, and now we have a lot more platforms like Bard, Delay, and other models coming in, right, by different tech giants and MNCs. So now I think if we look about the future, I think the future is conversational and generative in a way, right? That your customer experience platforms are going to be conversational, and they are going to be generative both at the same time, which means the future, you can imagine the future conversations where I think you don't have to tell a bot on what to say when a customer calls in and they are trying to book a ride, and the ride is, and we don't have a ride available, right? So the content is going to be auto generated, the bots are going to be super smart, super empathetic, and super personalized, right? And that's what we are going to see in kind of next kind of a couple of next slides, right? So yeah, I think but just before that, I think since I briefly talked about how conversational AI platforms traditionally used to work. Like, I'll spend a couple of minutes on how generative AI platforms like ChatGPT work, right? And what is the key difference, right? So I think, as I said, uh, like one key difference is that, like, if I go to the previous slide, conversational AI platforms use very small scale data, very business specific, very relevant data to train their bots on. But I think the generative AI platforms are going to use large language models. Now, these large language models, the exciting thing with that is you have trained your models on everything which is there on open source, on the internet, on billions of web pages. But what you can always do is you can contextualize your model with your own enterprise specific private data as well, right? So it's a combination of both. Right now, what you use on chat gpt is all public data on which the bot is going to trained on. But when enterprises are going to use chat gpt or open ai services, using maybe directly open ai apis, or whether if they are going to use like open ai services using microsoft azure, I think there they get an advantage of storing their own private enterprise data very securely and safely on the cloud. And then you can use that to train the chat gpt model, to bias or to contextualize the chat gpt model, so that your bot can be very very specific to your own enterprise or your own business use case, right? And there I think you can even define the scope of the bot, define the scope of the chat gpt model, on whether you want it to use the public data, or you can kind of switch it on, turn it off, depending upon customize the model itself based on your customer experience, right? So I think that's something you can do. A lot more things is that I think you can, which I already mentioned, is you can generate your own content, your own training data. You don't right now even need training data to train the bot on, because I think the generative ai models can itself generate a lot of data, synthesize the data, train it on itself, so that I think when the models and the bots are launched into production, they are much more interesting and useful, right? So I think that's generally how these platforms are going to work, right? So I think that's probably, I think, the slide which represents, which I quickly want to jump into, on how this experience is going to look like in the post ai era. So as I already said, I think the bots are going to be conversational as well as generative in nature. Now, what does that mean, right, for you? So let's say, right now what businesses do is they have a faq section on their website, right, where a lot of faqs are there. They have a lot of specific support websites or support sections on their website where users reach out, right? So what you can do is you can take all that knowledge dump, you can take all the knowledge articles, all the faqs, all the internal kind of documentation we have, and you can bias, you can contextualize your model with all the faqs. And now as soon as you talk to a, let's say, a bot, or or you call a customer care, I think your support is going to be very very personalized. I can give you an example on how you can imagine that, right? So let's say you are calling a travel booking website, and you are asking them that, oh, you bought a travel package for, let's say, a particular country, and you are changing your mind and you want to cancel that. Now I think, given your, now the bot which is going to be there is not going to be a actual human agent, but a smart bot which is conversational and generative in nature. It's going to have access to all the apis and all your customer data. So it can see what all previous bookings you have made, how much you have paid, what is the package you have bought, and based on that, it can actually make sure and make you convinced that you don't cancel the holiday package, by maybe even offering you a lot of other services, like maybe giving you extension of 2 more nights on your holiday package, or maybe giving you some of the services or value added services for free, or maybe selling you some additional services, right? So that's what I'm sorry. So that's what generally how the bots are going to be smart, personalized, and contextual in nature. When you train your bots with real-time APIs, FAQs, as well as I think all the technologies which exist earlier, along with the power and the magic of generative AI, which means you can generate all the things at the instant, right? I think, and that's what takes to the second point, which is what I've talked about, is conversational design is not going to be manual anymore. I think you can imagine that the bot responses as well as everything is going to be generated by the bot itself, and you don't have to feed in anything, right? And I can tell you a fun fact. So a lot of conversational AI platforms which exist traditionally, I think Gartner publishes a report of them every year, and there are a lot of them. A lot of conversational AI platforms are kind of launched by. A lot of conversational AI platforms belong to big companies like, let's say, Google, Microsoft, and all those things. So, for example, Google has their own platform called CCAI, which they call as Contact Center AI platform, which has a conversational as well as generative technology empowered with it now. But I think there are a lot of smaller MNCs, smaller companies, which sort of offer these services. Now I think a lot of them have pivoted in last 3 4 months, and when I was reading or I was looking at it online, I think right now they have launched like a bot to create your own bot very very quickly, right? So it's like there is a bot which says you that what is your business use case and what is something you want to build, and you sort of feed in that data in a form of conversational nature, and it will actually create a very dummy bot which you can again customize it later, right? uh, I don't want to name an enterprise, but I think very recently, I think last month, one of the leading technology conversational AI technology firms, they actually launched a very interesting feature where you can just put in your website URL. Let's say your website URL is whatever, I'm just naming it that your website URL is amazon.com, right? So I'm just naming something. So if you feed in amazon.com on their website, based on whatever is there on their support and FAQ section, it is going to automatically build a support bot on its own, right? So I think that quickly a technology has been that you can actually create these generative and conversational bots for better customer experience very very quickly, probably in a matter of seconds or minutes or hours, right? I think that's going to be that's how quickly the technology has moved after the launch of ChatGPT. I think the last set is, I think you can easily test, retrain your bot very, very quickly. And I think nowadays a lot of bots are there which are basically eventually testing and retraining your bot. So I think it sounds funny, but it is as simple as right now you can have a bot which is going to actually test your bot, right? So I think that's the analogy I just wanted to kind of build, and I think that's where I'll kind of pause very quickly for any questions I have. I think there's one slide which I missed. Let me just quickly present. I think it was not there on the presentation mode, but I think these are the some of the players which I was talking about, I think, which already exist in the conversational AI platform space. And I think this is a report by Gartner where they kind of classify them into four different kind of quadrants, and they call it as magic quadrant. So if you search about magic quadrant in conversational AI, you are going to get this report where I think these are the organizations which are leaders in this space. These are the newcomers or niche players. There are some challengers and some visionaries. And now I think the real challenge, all of them, and the real thing all of them are pivoting is how to kind of pivot this change of becoming not just a conversational, but a conversational plus generative AI platform, right? So I think that's where a lot of organizations have already pivoted, and a lot are going to be pivoted in this year. So if you are one of the businesses who are looking for a AI powered customer experience, reach out to any of these organizations, or kind of build it on your own using chat gpt open AI services directly. So yeah, I think that's where I'll pause and now open to questions for for anything.
Karanpreet, yeah, thanks for the presentation, Karanpreet. One question I had regarding the creativity, the temperature that we talk in the GPT world, right? The temperature for these things. When you are conversating with a customer, I am sure the experience is that the temperature should be, or the creativity, if I use in simple English, should be zero or next to zero, because people are calling. Think of these people are. Why do people need to conversate directly and tell them their problem? Why can't the system that is there understand the why? See, a customer, to be honest, will only talk to a customer agent if he has having a problem. It is not, if we talk in business sense, right? Like suppose I have a problem with Paytm, then only I will go to customer agent. If my Paytm is working fine, everything is good, I will not go just to chat with anyone, right? So I have a problem, that's why I go. And then it becomes a very monotonous conversation, right? How are you doing, with a smiley face and all. Why can't we, when we are going to the chatbot, they will know the problem that we had and can directly direct us and tell us that we found that this is your problem. Uh, do you want us to do the refund? I'm talking in the case of Paytm. You can take any scenario or any order like Zomato. We found that you're still waiting for your order. It has been more than 40 minutes. Uh, do you want a refund or you want to cancel the order? Why can't the system? And this is the future, I feel. And because as a customer also, I have talked to many businesses as well to think about a system. Before I ask a question, they will give me, this is the solutions that you can take. And it
Yep,
should
I think
be,
I completely align with your thoughts, Mohammed. I think I'll answer it in multiple parts since there are a lot of specific elements to it. I think one part is about, I think, personalization. And when I say personalization, you mentioned about creativity, or like maybe I think some bits which you mentioned is a customer has a problem and then only he reaches. I think so. One part is I'll answer that part separately on why there is a need to reach. But once it reaches, I understand that a lot of experiences are not good, because I think they are either like they have to wait a lot, and the conversations are not empathetic and personalized in nature, right? So you have to understand that if I am kind of, if I am here complaining for a support, that means I am expecting empathy from a person, from a customer experience person, which is there, and I am expecting a personalization. I don't expect a standard SOP answer given to me by a customer experience agent from on the other side, right? Which happens a lot. There's a very standard response given, right? So that's where I think these AI platforms are going to be very personalized in a way that you can define the tone based on whether it's a sales conversation, support conversation, a it's a happy customer, sad customer, upset customer, a very angry customer. Based on that, I think the tonality and the responses and the actions are going to change, right? If let's say I'm a very angry customer, I think first thing I'm going to hear is I'm going to get some bit of empathy from the customer, from the bot. And the second thing is a very quick action, maybe a very quick refund, or some additional services, or some additional voucher I get from the business, right? I think that part is it. Now I think coming to the first part which you mentioned is why there is a need in the first place to reach out. So I think let's see it in two parts. I think customers don't always reach out for support, but there's a journey, right? The journey starts when you become a lead, right? So first you buy, which is a sales journey, and then there is a support journey. In the sales journey, usually I know that for placing an order at Zomato, or for making a transaction on any fintech app, you don't really need to reach out. But let's say if I'm buying a very expensive product, I'll give you an example that last week I was buying a online MBA degree product from a edtech company in India, right? That's where it was like a probably like a $2,500 or like a 2.5 lakh rupees degree which I wanted to pay for, and I don't wanted to pay for that without, I think, making sure that somebody answers my specific question. And I know they have put in the FAQs and all, but that doesn't make sense. I wanted to make sure that my specific questions are answered, and that's where I talked to one of the human counselors. I even interacted with a bot, and they answered me very, very diligently, right? So I think that's where a lot of personal touch points has been there. On the other end also, even when you are doing a support, I understand a lot of businesses, enterprises, applications are kind of proactive in issuing you refunds or in providing you support. But a lot of times it's not about just refunds, right? I think a lot of time it's about services. Like, just to give an example, that I bought particular product which is like a electronics product, and it got broken, and the warranty period is there, and I need a very specific help with that. Or a lot of times we need help with troubleshooting, right? So now about troubleshooting, if we talk about, you can have troubleshooting docs, you can have FAQs, you can have handouts, but I think that's going to be very old future, right? The future, I think that that's a the days are gone when you get like a very boring handbook, which you get along with electronics you buy, and you read that and you troubleshoot, you set up your article. Nowadays you can just quickly go to the app, you write it that how do I set that, and you get a set of images on the application. So while I agree with you, I don't conversations and generative and conversational AI doesn't mean that you always have to talk to a bot. You can interact to a bot on the platform itself, right? So a bot can be as simple as, like, you go to the application, you put in that, oh, I my order was not good and my refund was quickly processed, right? So at the same time, I think if it is about refunds, the enterprises can be proactive in nature. But a lot of things are not just about refunds. There's a lot of things you need to interact, right? And that's where the entire journey comes in. Yeah.
Thank you, Karanpreet. Thank you for that answer.
Yep.
Uh,
Any other questions from
yeah,
anyone
if
in
I
the
may, if I may, Mr. Singh, I have a question, and this is from the perspective of someone who worked some time ago in Western Union's International's call center. All right, and I'm thinking if bots like ChatGPT, along with Whisper AI, are able to receive customers' calls directly, do you think there is any future in which call center operators might lose their jobs in mass, or there will still remain a role for the human in that AI interaction, AI chatbot interaction, or do you see companies just putting the entire call center function into the hands of AI?
Yep, a very good, very relevant and very important question, right? I hear about it every day, right? So I'll answer you in this way, right? So one way is that right now I think things are moving to a very, very specialist customer support, right? Where I think a lot of times you call a contact center, they one person picks up the call, they just ask you why are you calling, they find out, they make notes, and then they say that, oh, this is a billing related call, let me pass your call to a billing department of your bank or credit card or whatever, right? they this is in a technical language they call it as direct D2S, which is direct to specialist routing, which means your route, there is a journalist agent which finds your issue, and then they pass your call to the contact to a specialist queue. So now I see that a lot of generalist issues can be solved by a bot, whereas you always need a specialist agent, who sort of is there in the contact center to specifically help you, right? So bots can do a lot of use cases, like basically I think finding your issue or finding your intent. They can do a lot of things like identifying and authenticating you, and a lot of other things. But at the same time, I'm not saying that the customer experience agents, the human agents, are not required at all. And the analogy I will like to give you is that, see, there is a shortage of these specialist agents, and that's why when you call a contact center, can you tell me, like, just tell me any contact center where there is a no waiting list or no waiting queue, right? I mean, I have lived in the States, and there I know that even on calling a hospital, my medical provider for emergency, they ask me that, oh, there is a 25 minutes waiting on this call, even if there is a medical emergency, which means that there is a shortage of these specialist agents. And that's why I have to wait for 25 minutes. Now with ChatGPT and AI coming in, how I envision is that this wait time is going to vanish, right? That doesn't mean that your agents are going to vanish. There's a difference, right? Maybe your agents have to upskill. You have to spend some cost on them to upskill in terms of them, so that they can kind of provide that specialist support. You won't need generalist agents anymore. I agree with that. So there is a short term reduction of your workforce, but in a longer term, I think you don't really need to reduce the workforce, but rather to upskill them, so that your customer experience becomes better. And when your customer experience becomes better, your revenue is going to go higher, your customer loyalty experience is going to go higher, and your cost is going to go down, right? So when I say, I think you are going to, what I meant was that you will get rid of all the issues which I mentioned here, right? I think all the frustration and all the issues which I mentioned here, but I don't really refer to like humans not being there entirely at all, right? So I hope that answers the question, Dale.
Yes, it did. Thanks.
Yep. Any other questions? Looks like that's it.
Yeah, that's it. I think so too. So there are no questions. So thank you, Karanpreet, for joining us today. Thank you so much for your presentation. It was really insightful.